everybody, it's me, Zach, and welcome back to my channel. Hey everybody, it's me, it's Zach. Hi, hello. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well today. We are gonna try to dive right on into today's subject, which is a live stream, a public live stream that Amberlynn Reid did on Thursday night, and it was titled Breaking My Silence. And this was Amberlynn's follow-up to her latest community tab post where she talked about how she was going to finally break her silence regarding the things that Beck has come out and said about their relationship. I will say I think it's incredibly corny that she's calling the live stream Breaking My Silence. Because one, it, refers back to, I guess maybe if you're not in the beauty guru community or if you don't follow drama commentary channels that cover the beauty guru community, you might not know this, but it calls back to Tati Westbrook making a video called Breaking My Silence. It's a very well-known video in that circle of the internet and that circle of YouTube. I just think it's funny that she would refer back to that, and maybe that wasn't her intention. I'm sure Tati's not the only person to talk about breaking their silence, but I don't know, for some reason that's immediately where my mind went. But I also just think it's like a silly, corny thing to call the video, because let's just be clear that Amberlynn has hardly been silent about most things, about any time Beck has come out with videos about her, about Beck in general, and certainly even in this most recent history of Beck posting videos about Amberlynn. Amberlynn was maybe silent for one members-only live stream where she refused to answer the questions about Beck's inheritance, and otherwise, Amberlynn has not been silent really whatsoever. Amberlynn has a platform of currently 244,000 subscribers that she can say and do whatever she wants on. She has a much larger platform, at least by subscribers, than Beck. So it's not like Amberlynn is some voiceless person out here who can't speak up for herself. If she wanted to, she would, and has. During the live stream, Amberlynn does note that she has some notes pulled up, which I also think is interesting because this live stream is such a good example of it could have been an email. And in this case, what I mean by that is that it could have literally been some pre-recorded content where she went through piece by piece in her notes section of her phone and said, these are the things that I want to address that Beck has said. This is what's true. This is what I believe to be not true, etc. She could have done it all in a pre-recorded video, and I could have saved myself 3 hours of my life. Well, I did watch on 2x speed, but I was stopping, pausing. I have my own notes actually that I'm doing because this is a pre-recorded video, and I have my own notes that I took, so it took probably 3 hours still to get through it all, even though I had it on 2x speed. My approach to covering this live stream is to revisit the things that Amberlynn promised this live stream would be in her most recent community tab post and kind of try to organize it that way. It's kind of confusing and there probably will be some overlap. It's not going to be perfect and trying to fit it into these categories of her community tab posts, but hopefully you'll understand once we get there. She also reiterated all of these goals for herself at the beginning of the stream, and I think that's interesting because I don't know that I think she did a great job. But let's start with the first part of her community tab post where she said, but I want to make it very clear this will not be a place to bash Beck, to insult Beck, or to invalidate Beck. In addition to that, later in the community tab post, she says, as much room as Beck is getting to share their truth, I'm now ready to share mine. Without the added, well, guess what Beck did? And I want to put an emphasis on the not the added, well, guess what Beck did, because so many of the things I'm going to talk about in this section are going to reflect that Amberlynn actually did take a lot of time to bash Beck, invalidate Beck, and also bring up things like, well, guess what Beck did? So she wasn't super successful in this. And a good example of that is that immediately, right towards the beginning of the stream, she brings up that Beck asked Amberlynn to stop talking about them and threatened legal action once upon a time.
It's just like so much. Like I've been wanting to say so much and I haven't been able to. I'm gonna say why. Okay, so some stuff I obviously blocked out. September 7th, 2022, I get a text from Beck saying, last fucking warning, stop talking about me. All you do is talk shit about me. And I just want to forget you and all of the bullshit. I will stop being silent if you don't. And I'm not the only one who has a lot to say about you. Final fucking warning. Take my name out of your mouth and I can get the law involved. That's fair. Here's the screenshot. And obviously I crossed out everything else because obviously like that's personal. So that's fair. Okay. So I stopped talking about them.
And we already knew about that. I think both Beck and Amberlynn at this point have talked about that. So the part that's confusing to me is why are we bringing it up again now? I don't understand the context of that. And Amberlynn shows screenshots and interestingly crosses out the things that she said to Beck. But also like this happens many other times throughout the stream whenever Amberlynn is showing receipts of screenshots of her journal, this, that, the other. And she does end up reading some of the censored parts out loud, but not actually always showing the uncensored versions. And to be honest, a lot of the times it doesn't make sense to me why she felt like she needed to censor it out, but I don't know. I think it just adds more confusion to her receipts, her screenshots. Like, I think that the way that she chooses to showcase screenshots and things like that, she does it in like maybe the most confusing way you could. And Amberlynn also claims that like, you know, Beck asked me to stop talking about them and I did. But I think we all know the reality is that Amberlynn continued to talk about Beck on her channel multiple times, still doing it in recent history. Since breaking up with Beck. And specifically, I think the example that jumps out the most to me was the time that she was on a phone call with Destiny. And to be fair, for part of that phone call, Amberlynn, I don't think knew that Destiny, or it claimed she didn't know that Destiny was live streaming. But like, Amberlynn fully brought up Beck.
You don't know what Beck put me through, and no one does. No one does because I am not that person.
She's gonna have a field day with this.
I didn't know that I didn't know that you were alive still. I wouldn't have talked about Becky. Oh my god, I fucking hate you.
No, it like froze and I had to get off and then it finally went back on.
Oh my god, I did not know you were still alive. I would not have talked about Becky because I literally, like I said, I am respectful.
I don't want to hear it.
Oh, that's why you can be rude all of a sudden. Okay, it's making sense now.
That's not why I was being rude.
You were rude. Yeah, your tone shifted for sure.
But anyways, I guess the context for sharing this particular screenshot and text is that this is why Amberlynn has felt silenced.
Were you silent or were you silenced?
And you know, and still considering ways that like she is coming on here and invalidating Beck, she clarifies that she herself doesn't think that she is a victim, but is saying that there are two people involved in this situation and one of them isn't being honest.
And I know a lot of people are like, you are not a victim. I'm not saying I'm a victim. I'm saying that there's two people in this story and one of them isn't being honest about the situation at hand.
And you know what, Amberlynn? I'm inclined to agree with you. And when I say I agree, what I mean is there are definitely two people in this relationship, and one of them is lying, and one of them that is lying is you. It's you, Diva. I don't, after watching this whole entire live stream, I don't trust a lot of what you had to say in it. Like, point blank period. A smaller thing that got brought up is that somebody asked about Beck saying that Amberlynn's foster parents wouldn't take her to Disney and made her stay in the garage or whatever. And Amberlynn uses this question to bring up a random clip unrelated to the question to try to invalidate Beck being a reliable narrator.
Did you tell Beck your foster parents didn't let you go to Disney? No. So Beck is mixing two completely different stories together. And what's really crazy about this is there's actually a clip of me, Beck, Ricky, and Eric. We were all sitting at the dining room table. Me and Eric were, well, Ricky was talking about a time that he was in jail. And Beck was like, I don't remember this. And Eric was like, how do you not remember that? And then me and Eric actually are sitting there. There's like a clip of this online, so you can go see it. Me and Eric were like, Beck, like you're always like remembering like certain stories that like 3 different stories and like combining them into together and like you're not remembering. And that's what's happening.
And I should say that I think it probably is really difficult to remember every small minor detail of a traumatic relationship you were in. And also perhaps Amberlynn, who often cites her own experiences with trauma and not being able to remember things, could be a bit more understanding about that. Especially on something that in the grand scheme of the things that Beck has shared about their relationship, like a story about whether or not Amberlynn got to go to Disney as a child is pretty insignificant compared to some of the far more serious allegations that Beck has made about their relationship. At one point, somebody asked a little bit about how Amberlynn didn't realize how Beck was feeling in the relationship.
Why were you completely unable to recognize how Beck felt and their emotions for the entirety of your 4-year relationship? Well, you have to be more specific because sometimes I did know exactly how they felt because they told me. And I'm realizing that there was a lot of times that they lied. I think a really good example of that would be like choosy or like when they would give me like the anxiety massage. Like it's just like partner emotional regulation, like making your partner feel good and safe and loved and things that I would also do for them. Like they really liked when I would do this. So that was like my thing that I did for them. And it's like, I'm realizing that it wasn't that at all. It was, I almost feel like I was a burden to them in moments that I thought we were actually genuinely bonding. Like that's the part that's like hard for me to like wrap my head around, I think.
And I do want to say, I think it's probably somewhat reasonable to look back at a relationship with new information, new perspectives and things like that and be like, wow, that is not how I thought that went. That is not how I perceived the relationship to be. But what's wild to me is that even after Beck has been like, yeah, well, this is how I felt. Like, this is how I felt about playing Choosy. It was a miserable experience for me. It's wild for her to still sit here and be like, I don't know, it's hard for me to wrap my head around this. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I liked it, so like, how could Beck not? Much later in the live stream, she later clarifies that like, if Beck didn't want to do something, she would have never made Beck do it. But Beck's story about like the lint picking, for instance, definitely included Beck sharing that like, they would ask to stop doing it because it made their arms hurt. Their arms would get sore doing it for so long. And they also noted that like Amberlynn would set timers for how long Beck had to do it. And I just want to say that nobody's setting a timer for their partner to do something that they want to do. And when it comes to the timer, Amberlynn also later in the stream tries to make some kind of claim that like there were never timers and Beck agreed that there were never timers. But then moments later, she's talking about how like she required Beck to do it for a certain amount of time every time that they did it.
There was never like an actual timer involved, and Beck finally like came out and said that there was never a timer involved. So I'm glad that they did that, but like why did they say there was in the beginning? That's weird to me. And no, it was literally like once every 6 months because they genuinely did not like doing it. And something else to add to that is it was never 45 minutes. It was usually like 20. And they always had their headphones in and they got to listen to music and they were just doing their own thing. And they genuinely seemed like it was just a loving partner thing to do.
So I guess maybe she's being a little bit of semantics Lynn. Like perhaps there maybe wasn't a physical like stopwatch or something, but it does sound like time was being kept in some kind of way to the extent that Amberlynn is sitting out here able to say like Beck did it for 22 minutes at a time or whatever. And she also says later that Beck never acted bored.
They never act bored. They never acted like they didn't like it. Like I'm just confused.
Which is interesting to me because she's also stated, even in recent history and responding to some of the stuff from Beck, that she was not aware that Beck didn't want to be in vlogs, for instance. That she didn't realize that Beck didn't enjoy being in vlogs, even though many people at the time were like, Beck looks miserable here. After all of the back and forth about all of that stuff when it comes to choosy and lint picking and this, that, the other, Amberlynn did finally, towards the very end of the stream, kind of, sort of try to say sorry about not noticing that Beck didn't enjoy it.
I'm sorry. Like, if I never noticed they didn't enjoy it or something, I'm actually genuinely sorry for that as well.
And this is a little bit of a spoiler alert for the part of the video where we get into Amberlynn taking accountability, or maybe in some cases lack thereof. That's about as good as you're gonna get. That's about as good as the apologies and the accountability gets when it comes to Miss Amberlynn Reid. We're gonna talk more about Beck and money and how that comes into play with Amberlynn and the accusations of like financial abuse. But when I think about the different ways that Amberlynn tried to invalidate Beck or like even bash Beck, at one point, Amberlynn claims that Beck was using her for money and only stayed in the relationship because of money.
I found out a lot of things that I did not know about, actually. That made sense. And it like added up for me, obviously. Behind my back, like Beck admitted to using me for money. And that is the only reason why they were with me. Oh, this part like really hurt me. Beck literally called me a fat fucking bitch. And that genuinely shocked me. And obviously you guys probably know who the mutual friends are, let's be real. Beck would, like during an argument, would say kind of harsh things, obviously, but never like vulgar. So when I heard like using me for money, like low key, it felt like it made sense to me, because I would tell them like, get a job. Like I could tell you're bored, because once we moved from the home where we had roommates and we were living with friends, like obviously it was different. Like we always had something to do. But when it was just me and Beck, like I was like, get a job. Like, are you joking? And so they tried Uber, but they only did it like twice. And I'm like, and I always tried to be super like, what's the word? What word am I looking for? I always tried to be super supportive with their passions. Like I bought them all kinds of like this art stuff so they could start an art business. And I really wanted to help them with that. And like I tried so hard to be like, Beck, like you got this, like you can do anything like that you put your mind to. And they just didn't.
But yeah, I think that's really a weird thing to bring up. I mean, I think ultimately Amberlynn was trying to like allude to, you know, how could I be like financially abusive when Beck was the one that was like in the relationship for the money. But that is just like such a wildly different story than what Beck has shared that, you know, I'm very unclear what the point of bringing it up here is. I feel like Amberlynn is misinterpreting that Beck felt like they had to stay in the relationship because they were financially dependent on Amberlynn as Beck using them for money. Amberlynn also tries to, you know, make Beck look like a bad person by bringing up an experience where Beck said my name in one of Amberlynn Reid's vlogs.
Did you ban Beck from watching reaction channels? No, because here's another thing that I thought was really weird. Beck literally doxed Zachary Michael's like full name in one of my YouTube videos, and there's literally a clip of it. And I was like so confused because I didn't even know Zach's full name. Like, how did Beck know it over me? I was beyond confused. So that's obviously something else that isn't true.
And since Amberlynn wants to bring this up and try to make Beck look bad for that experience, let me just read some DMs that I had with Amberlynn back when the weight loss surgeon stuff happened, back when Amberlynn was DMing me, threatening me because she felt like I doxed her weight loss surgeon, which is not a thing that I did on my channel. I think we've addressed that. But But during that time, one of the reasons that I cited taking her concerns seriously was because, you may recall, I was doxxed in one of her videos where she left in a clip of Beck saying my full name. This was like part of a very long message, so I tried to just fit in what was most relevant to me sharing that Amberlynn was acknowledging this time that I got doxxed in one of her videos. But I said, either way, I won't bring up Dr. Smith and you again in the same context. I agree that doxing is messed up, and I've defended you and Feline in the past when people took her photo. I think it's very scary, so I appreciate you reaching out to me, and I will take this seriously. And she said, truly appreciate it, thanks. And I said, yeah, no problem. Regardless of if we disagree on things, the time where Beck said my last name in one of your videos led to people contacting my job at the time, calling me, and people in my family. It's so unnerving, and I would never want to intentionally do that to you. Which, to be fair, I had put my name out there long before Beck. But just saying that was a scary time. And this was Amberlynn's response. For some reason, I thought people knew your last name, so it didn't click for me at the time. But even so, it's been years, and I've learned from past mistakes and definitely regret that choice of not editing out your last name. People are scary, and they like to intentionally try to ruin lives. I unfortunately have hundreds of people who go IRL. Yes, my surgeon is Dr. Smith, and I didn't want anyone knowing. Narc Alert and Kicking Geese completely doxed him about a month ago, showed his picture, his name, contacted the facility to get his seminar, saying how that's the surgeon I'm seeing, etc. It's horrible and no one is holding them accountable. And I said, I think when I first started watching you, my last name was in my handle, so truly no worries there. I wasn't trying to blame you. I had no idea that others did that. I genuinely don't like to watch other reactors, but I will do my best to just keep it in your video. I don't know, the screenshot has the little arrow covering it up. I think I was saying keep it to stuff just in your videos as I normally do. And so to be clear, I honestly, truly, it was my dumbass choice to get onto Al Gore's internet to begin with and use my full last name when I was engaging in this quarter of the internet. I had originally set up social media surrounding my full name because I used it a lot to network and stuff in the field that I worked in prior to doing YouTube full time. But for her to come on here and try to blame Beck for saying it in a video that ultimately she had the ability to edit out, okay? Just to be clear, Amberlynn fully had the ability to edit it out, 100%. And then on top of that, in my DMs, apologized to me for not editing out. And you want to blame Beck? You want to blame Beck? You want to blame Beck? And like in the clip, she also tried to like act like she didn't even know what my last name was. That's a lie. And in fact, you can tell by the way that she even responded to me in those messages that she didn't realize that other people didn't know that that was my full name. That was her excuse. She was like, I thought everybody knew that was your real life last name. So really, truly, just cut the bullshit, Amberlynn. Like absolutely cut the bullshit. And I also want to say that even if Beck knew my last name at the time, it by no means proves that you like allowed them to watch reaction channels. And at this point, Beck has acknowledged that they were aware that we existed. And obviously, Beck knew who I was. I mean, literally, Beck's sister was like threatening to sue me and stuff, okay? Like that's a part of the lore. So I'm not surprised or shocked to know that Beck knew who I was. But I do believe there were probably points in your relationship where you didn't allow them to look at reaction channels, even if you were watching them. And there's also a screenshot that Amberlynn showed where she was trying to prove that she was still friends with Beck up to a year after their relationship ended.
And Beck was like, that never happened. We were not friends at all. I never said that. Never said that. So I have a screenshot of that being true. So I'm going to read it and then I'm going to show it. So it was April 17th, 2022, which is almost a year after we broke up. I sent Beck, I am literally getting harassed because people think I lied about us still being friends. Why can't I just tell them I wasn't lying? This sucks so bad. And Beck said, it's best that they don't know. As sad as it is, that would kill my channel. I do not want them knowing because they'll just make it an even bigger, more messy thing. I'm going to address that I saw you and have the rings, but we don't hang out, dude. That's just how it has to be. That's what they have to know because YouTube is my only income and I'm only getting $200. And at the time, Beck was saying that they had a job, even though they didn't. And I said, but what about the backlash I'm getting for lying, even though I'm not lying? And Beck said, if this comes out, it would be even less, talking about money. And I'm like, I'm literally choosing you over myself. And that was that. So I stayed with the lie. It's not irrelevant when Beck literally said last night that it's not true. And then this is where they said that they lost their job and YouTube didn't know about it. You guys thought that they still was working. Sorry, I am a boomer. Look at all those tabs I have. So I literally just read it to you, so it's like common sense of what it says.
And from what I recall, even in Beck's most recent live stream, they said that there were, in fact, times that, like, they hung out with Amberlynn, interacted with Amberlynn, and it was mostly because they were still friends with Eric and Ricky would hang out with Amberlynn, or there were cases where they needed to go pick something up from the apartment that Amberlynn still lived in. And a very common tactic that Amberlynn has done with me is to try to twist things and reword things and take them out of context and things like that. And the thing that I think really irritated me the most is that Amberlynn tried to present this screenshot like it was evidence of Beck lying to their audience, which is also, famously, I know I just got done talking about the weight loss surgeon thing, but that's also what Amberlynn tried to do with me. She tried to present that I was lying to my audience this whole time about who her weight loss surgeon was in a way to manipulate them. And so yeah, in this screenshot, she reads it off and she provides additional context to what's actually in the text messages and says things like, you know, Beck didn't tell you all that they didn't have a job and this, that, the other. But the way that I read the stuff in the screenshot made it sound like Beck had just recently lost their job. And also, on top of that, I know from having been in this corner of the internet for a while and always watching the new videos that Beck puts out, that Beck has been very upfront and transparent from the get-go after their relationship ended with Amberlynn about the ways that they've struggled financially and being able to keep a job and things like that. That's honestly, truly the reason that so many people have criticized Beck in the past as being a grifter or needing money or things like that, because a lot of the times that they would come back to YouTube, they would also simultaneously be like, I lost my job, I can't keep a job, I've been having trouble getting back to work, things like that. So like, I think most people are aware of Beck's troubles, and it just really irritated me that Amberlynn tried to present it in a way of like, Beck is being dishonest about YouTube and needing the money from YouTube and things like that. I will say those examples are probably not the only examples of the ways that Amberlynn invalidated Beck or bashed Beck. The live stream was, in fact, 3 hours long, and a lot of things were repetitive, so like a lot of the things I just covered, she actually said multiple times about Beck. And also just like, if I spent time on every single thing, my video would also be 3 hours long, you know? The next part of Amberlynn's community tab post where she talked about doing this live stream, she said, "It is going to be a place for me to be accountable in the wrongdoings I have done by being open about them, sharing what I did, and sharing what I could have done differently." And I do want to say there are some things that Amberlynn was seemingly honest and open about. I don't necessarily think she took accountability for the things that seemed to be truly problematic towards Beck. I think there could have been maybe a little bit more of that involved. There were even some things that I feel like she volunteered about herself that make herself look bad, but like doesn't necessarily like account for the things that Beck was truly genuinely like frustrated and upset about in the relationship, but that's also just my opinion about it. And I guess a lot of that is based on the parts of this community post where she said that she would share more about what she did and what she could have done differently, because there was very little of that. Like, a lot of the things she vaguely would take accountability for, like vaguely say I was controlling, vaguely say I was harsh, but then not say like, oh, these are the ways that I was those things. And I do take some level of issue with that, because I do think those are important parts of taking accountability. Amberlynn does say from the get-go, from the beginning of this live stream, that she is very detached from the situation. I think we all know that lately she uses the words like detached and dissociate and things like that as I don't know, words she learned on TikTok. And in this case, it feels like a way for her to cover her bases in the event that, like, she doesn't come across in the way that she wants. Because she's like, you know, I might giggle, I might space off, I might do this, that, the other. And I think she just was like, I'm gonna put this out there so that if anybody says that this doesn't seem genuine, that this doesn't seem authentic, then it's not my problem. But I think a good example of her, like, vaguely taking accountability for something starts about 10 minutes into the video, and she does say that looking back she can see that she was harsh to Beck.
Because like doing this online like is a lot, because the thing, like, I get like in my videos, because I look back, I see in some of my videos I was like pretty harsh to Beck, and for that I'm sorry, especially like doing it publicly. Like, it's pretty awful, really.
But like I said, she doesn't share what she did. She doesn't share how she plans on changing. And another thing that she does a lot when taking accountability is do that part of the, well, Beck did this, immediately following any kind of accountability on her part. An example of that is her saying, I wasn't perfect, well, Beck also wasn't perfect.
It just made me realize that, like, I'm not perfect. Beck wasn't perfect. Like, I was super controlling of their time, of like their energy. I always wanted them near me. Like, always. Like, it was crazy, and I'm able to admit that, and I'm sorry for that, and that's wrong. Beck is their own individual, their own person, and they could do whatever the fuck they want. And for some reason at the time, it felt like I needed them always. And I'm able to realize that I was not perfect. And it's like, I hate like having to do like two things at once, because it makes me feel like my apology or my accountability isn't real. But it is. Like, what I'm about to say does not take away from that, and I need people to hear it. I need people to hear that. So anyways, I was going through and I was looking for proof of something, which I'll show you. There was this text message I saw where I like sent a big long message to Beck saying like how I felt. It's actually on my other phone. If you guys want to see, I can get up and go get it. But some of it is actually personal. In it, I was saying how like I like quoted some things that Beck said to me. And one of the things was, I wrote down in my notes, at least my family didn't do drugs. Like, Beck would say things like that to me. And I forgot that they even said that to me until I was looking at a text message from like, I think it was like 2020. And I was like, holy fuck. And it's things like where it just, neither of us were happy.
And again, she doesn't say how she specifically, at least in this instance, doesn't say specifically how she controlled Beck's time, and didn't really talk about what she would do differently. But she is really good for following up with the, well, Beck did this. And that leads into her going into this situation of talking about a time where Beck texted her and said, well, at least my family didn't do drugs. And I do want to say, I was waiting, and maybe I missed it, because she said she had text message proof of that, like a screenshot proof of that, but I don't think she ever showed it, unless it was towards the end. I will say I felt like I was fading pretty fast towards like the last hour. So perhaps she did that because she did go out and pull out another phone, because, you know, she did claim recently, just very recently, that she only had one phone, and now all of a sudden, well, I had this phone in my storage storage unit. So like I went and got it from there. So I don't know. I do remember her finally eventually pulling that out, but I don't remember a screenshot for this example of like, well, at least my family didn't do drugs or whatever that she's claiming that Beck said to her. And I also just have to imagine that if it did happen, that that's not something that just like came out of nowhere. I'm not saying that it's correct of them to say if they did say that, but you know, I really imagine from my own personal interactions with Amberlynn that she is somebody who will push and push and push and push and then get mad when somebody pushes back and says something also nasty. Again, I don't recall seeing any of the proof, so it's hard to say either way what anybody's intentions were, but that was just a thought. And you know, another thing, and this kind of goes into Amberlynn taking accountability, although I thought that this was just about her taking accountability for the stuff with Beck, but somebody, after Amberlynn brings up the family drug stuff, somebody points out, hey, wasn't there that one time that you talked about Destiny's brother being on drugs? Like it was some kind of tea?
So what, you talk about Destiny's brother on drugs? Yes, that was a very, very low point of me, and I should have never done that, and I'm sorry for that. That was a very bad look.
And while Amberlynn did apologize for it, I mean, this is the challenge and struggle with Amberlynn, is that like she'll take these things super personally when it happens to her, but the only thing she knows how to respond to people when they're being nasty to her is to try to say also really nasty things. Interestingly, she does at one point say that she was very abusive and controlling at the time of their relationship, but not financially abusive, and then ends up making it about them both being bad with money.
We can say that like I was abusive and controlling because I was very controlling of their time. And I'm very, very so sorry for that. But never once have I ever been financially abusive. We have been equally so bad with money. That's why I have nothing to literally show for anything, because we would spend so much money, the both of us, constant. Like they were allowed to buy what they want when they wanted.
And yeah, again, it's like she's unable to be like, hey, I did this fucked up thing without making it about how Beck was also bad at something, in this case, managing their own money. And mind you, Amberlynn has literally talked about being some kind of financial budgeting goddess on her channel before.
But why do you and Becky pay for things separately? We both have a budget. I'm very into budgeting. We have the exact same amount. So when we have the same bank account and we share money. No, I'm not. I make sure that I have a budget that I follow every single month. I'm very particular about how much money I spend on certain things. Bills and important things like that, responsibilities, always come first. And then I have a section of money that I save. I have a section of money that I do donate, whether that's to friends, family, charities, doesn't matter. I always donate every single month. Then I have a section of money that is like emergency that I just don't touch. Then there's a section of money that's just kind of there. There's a section of money that I allow myself to spend on frivolous crap because it's my money and I make that money. You know, one day I will die. And that money ain't coming with me.
She's literally talked about how she's so good with money. So it's funny to me that this convo has turned into how they're both allegedly bad with money, despite for years Amberlynn acting like she was some kind of budgeting goddess. Amberlynn also takes accountability for having to have Beck wipe her.
Beck started wiping me after my hysterectomy, and it continued on after that. This part is embarrassing, and this part I am going to be accountable. Here we go. Accountable Lynn coming in at you. Wiping for me has always been extremely hard as a bigger girl, obviously. When I was about to get my hysterectomy, that was a big thing for me that I was like, how am I going to be able to wipe myself? Because it's hard already. I'm not going to be able to. So this is something that I was like, Becky, like, are you going to be able to do this for me? Like, I'm really embarrassed about it. And they were like, of course. Like, I love you, blah, blah, blah. When I was healing, I physically could not do it. Like physically could not do it. And so Beck did it for me. Me not being able to wipe for, it was like honestly a few weeks. And already something that was already so hard for me, I kind of lost the ability to do it. I was literally shook because I remember when I was noticing like my healing was getting better, like everything was going great, like I was able to do all sorts of things again and all this stuff, and like the healing was just going perfect. And I was like, holy fuck, wait a minute. I like have lost the ability to like do this. Obviously after time I was able to figure that out again, thankfully. But I would say Beck wiped me for, I would say, a good 9 months. It's really embarrassing. And I know a lot of people are going to forever make this a meme. I also did very embarrassing things for Beck. Like, that's what you do when you're in a 5-year relationship. Like, that is what you are going to do.
And first of all, I know I'm a shitting, pissing, and farting channel. I think it totally makes sense when you're recovering from a major surgery like she was, that you would need help with many things. And I do think sometimes as a partner, that's what you have to do. I imagine it is very embarrassing to have to admit that. But what I will say, what is so frustrating about this is she could have just ended it with, yes, I did in fact have to be wiped for 9 months. And I'm very grateful that Beck was there to do it for me, because I don't know what I would have done otherwise. She could have just ended it there, but she had to be like, but I also did embarrassing things for Beck. I also did. And it's just like, again, like, I don't know, like, it's not my apology to accept anything like that, but like, when every single time you take an ounce of accountability, you immediately follow up with like, hey, here are the things Beck did. And granted, she didn't go into details about what Beck did, so like, maybe she feels like she's not really, you know, like exposing Beck or anything like that, but it's annoying. It's annoying. Somebody also asked her at some point about if she went through Beck's phone. And of course she follows it up with like, she's like, yes, I did that. But also Beck was a liar, because Beck was allowed to go through my journals, was allowed to go through my phone if they wanted.
Beck said how I always went through their phone and how I would never let them go through mine. Half of that is true. Half of that is not true. So something I was really bad with due to like trust issues, but it doesn't even matter otherwise. We're not going to even just erase that I just said that. I would go through Beck's phone, and I also did it to past partners as well. Not a good look. I'm not even going to say why. It doesn't matter why. I did it, and I'm sorry. That's controlling. That's wrong. It's wrong. Point blank period. I should not have ever done that. Like, there's no reason. Part about Beck saying they were never allowed to go through my phone, they were never allowed to read my journals, is a lie. I have proof. A very old journal. And if you guys know, you guys know. If you watch my vlogs, you guys know I've showed this like a million times before. So this journal is from June 18th, 2021 to December 9th, 2021. And I have showed this in multiple vlogs. So this isn't like a fake story time, nothing like that. On July 24th of 2021, I wrote this. I think I'm done reading this journal to Becky. This shit has gotten kind of deep, and I want to go even deeper. There are some things I don't want Becky knowing, mainly because I'm embarrassed. I want to be able to write in this journal as if it's absolutely no one is going to read it. This is the best way to write. I haven't told Becky she will no longer be reading this journal, but I should probably tell her soon. I just kind of feel bad about it, even though I shouldn't. So obviously I don't want to show you guys what else it says in here. So I took a screenshot of the actual page, but I took out everything else. So again, July 24th, 2021. And this is when I started meeting Feline. So I was like writing things about Feline, and I was like, this is awkward. Why would I let Becky read this? You guys, that's embarrassing. I can't show the whole journal entry. Like, it's a journal for a reason. Do you guys just want to see the whole page? Like, I'm so embarrassed right now. I was talking about Feline, obviously. I said, I'm seriously so confused about my emotions right now. I like Feline more than I thought I would. So when she randomly said she wants to be single because she can't commit, my heart dropped. This is some tea. I just don't understand, because everything we do is like we're in a relationship. I don't want to be in a relationship either, but I also don't want her talking to anyone else. I'm pretty sure she feels the same way. I'm also confused because it seems like she wants to meet me sooner than I had expected. I'm just not ready for that. There's so many things I need to change and improve before we can even plan it. I don't feel like the person I am, if that makes sense.
And also part of this is that she shows her own personal journal from the time as proof that she let Beck read her journals. And like I said, a lot of her proof was like censored out. And some people were like, well, what is censored out here that we can't read? Like, you'll show us this part where you said that Beck isn't allowed to read your journals anymore, but like, what's going on? So she goes on to read that part of her journal entry out loud. And I do think it's interesting because the whole journal entry was mostly about how Feline wanted to like have a relationship and move in and meet up and things like that. And Amberlynn was like, I don't think I'm ready for a relationship. I think I have a lot of things I need to work on, this, that, the other, which is just so funny because I know for a fact at the time that's what people were saying. And I know for a fact that people are still saying that every time she gets into a new relationship. So it's so funny that she can have that kind of self-awareness in her journal and then do nothing with it. Like, that journaling's really working for you, Amberlynn. It's so good that you can put those words onto paper and then do nothing with it. But it is also weird to me that the whole point of her even bringing up this journal to everybody was to prove that, like, the stuff in my journal's too personal for me to still be sharing with Beck after we broke up, and so I'm gonna have to cut Beck off from reading these journals. But you know what? Now in 2025, I'll read it all to you. I'll read it all because it's so deeply personal. And about an hour into the live stream, she does briefly, finally kind of address ways that she would like to try to change these behaviors.
How will you stop those behaviors going forward? So it's hard to answer this question without bringing up the very big elephant in the room. So I'm going to try my very, very hardest. So the behaviors of like being controlling of like my partner's time, how I'm going to stop those is, I think me living by myself has actually greatly helped with that, just like naturally, like genuinely. I love being alone. I love living by myself. I
do have to laugh just a little bit at her saying that living by herself is helping her change the behaviors. Because, well, to be fair, I do get it to some extent, right? Like, she is forced to do more stuff on her own and be less dependent on people around her. Like, if you don't have somebody living with you 24 hours a day, you just have to figure out how to do things on your own. And, you know, I do think she still has Mama Lynn to help her do a lot of stuff. But, like, Mama Lynn isn't there 24/7. So to some extent, she is having to work through that stuff. But it also just feels funny for her to be like, well, one of the ways that I'm learning how to depend on not having a partner do everything for me, not being super needy of my partner, is to just live by myself. Girl, you're single. Girl, what you're saying is that being single is forcing you into having to figure out how to do that. And I'll also say, on that note, is that, like, she claimed that she was living, like, the single life that whole time that she was talking to Erica. And we know that that wasn't helping her, because even in a long-distance relationship with Erica, we know from her own admission, and I think also Erica's, that she would just send, like, absolutely, like, intense text messages being demanding of needing things from Erica and this, that, the other. And I would be inclined to speculate that those kinds of things probably happened with Tommy Salami too. And of course, like, I don't want to discredit her talking about going to therapy or any of that. Like, I do think that that's important as long as she takes it seriously. There was some point in the live stream where she pulled out the old DBT workbook, and I don't know, girl. Okay, whatever. But I don't want to discredit that, like, therapy could be a very successful part of her managing some of these behaviors in the future, as long as she utilizes it and actually does the work and tries. And then the last few things that she took accountability for, I don't have a lot to say about, so we're just gonna fly through some of these things with clips. But she does acknowledge that she probably shouldn't have made Beck drive her around when Beck was having renal failure.
I was with Beck for almost 5 years. Beck was over medicated for 3 months. That is it. So they started the medication towards like the middle/end of October 2019. And then they stopped taking it because finally in December, like I was putting my foot down. I actually have, it's on my other phone, I have a screenshot of me telling Beck, I have because we had the same psychiatrist. And I was like crying. I was like, I love you so much. I miss you. Like something's wrong and we all care about you. Like, and I had an appointment with our psychiatrist. Like it was an appointment for me. And I was like, I'm going to give you that slot because I need you to you need to be seen. Like we're all worried about you, like collectively as like a unit. Like it was me, Eric, Ricky, their family, et cetera, et cetera. Like we were so worried. So thankfully it was only 3 months out of 5 years that Beck was medicated. You can go back, you can look at the videos. It was hard and it was scary. I should have never, ever asked Beck to do anything while they were like that. And I'm sorry for that. I take full responsibility. I should have never asked for anything. Ever.
And she also saves Beck some time and outs herself for having bed bugs.
And then they also added on, it's stuff that I'm holding on to just in case. Laugh, laugh, laugh. So I just wanted to, I'll just do it. I'll save Beck the trouble and I'll do it. So Beck wants to talk about a time that I had bed bugs.
During the live stream era, Amberlynn does acknowledge that Beck was an employee.
Did you tell Beck they were your employee? I've never said that unless it was during our live stream era, because Beck was obviously getting some of that money, but I've never, like during a vlog, been like, oh, you're my employee. That never happened.
What I didn't realize the first go around of watching this until now while I'm editing is that Amberlynn says that Beck did obviously get some of the money from live stream era, but that is just simply not probably true considering what Beck has had to say about Amberlynn owing them that money. I'm going to talk a little bit more about their financial situation later, the arrangement between them and the inheritance money, but I did just think that was really interesting because if Beck was your employee, Amberlynn, then you need to pay them. And one thing that I appreciated was that Amberlynn did apologize for the way she blamed Beck for her having cancer.
Do you regret blaming Beck for your cancer? Yeah, I'm sorry for that. I worded that so weird, back in the day. 100%. I shouldn't have done that.
So the last part of the community tab post that I really wanted to address is Amberlynn said, it's also going to be a place for me to share my point of view of situations that I remember differently, because as wrong as I was in a lot of situations with Beck, it is wrong to lie and exaggerate things that are not true. And I think really the situation that best encompasses that part of the community tab post is the situation regarding Beck's inheritance. So here's a little bit of a longer clip of Amberlynn sharing her memory of what happened with the inheritance money.
No. So I guess we can talk about the inheritance. I did talk about this in my members only, but obviously not everyone saw that. I talked about how Beck is saying that I took the inheritance. Me and Beck had a joint account. Okay, so this is where a screenshot comes in, so I'm glad we're talking about this. Me and Beck had a joint account, and it was originally her bank account, their bank account. I'm sorry, I'm getting really, really flustered. My apologies. So it was originally their bank account. When we got together, I ended up going on their bank account together. So we were joint bank accounts. So any money that either of us both received went into one full-fledged, one area. In a recent, I don't know if it was video, live stream, I forget what it was. Beck said how they didn't even have the means to look at the bank to see how much money was in there, that they had to use my debit card, that I had my own private thing. Those are not true statements. I have a screenshot. I was not able to get into the bank ever. I have so many screenshots of wondering how much did I get paid? I would text Becky, and literally ask that. I'd be like, how much did I get paid, etc., etc. Beck would literally send me screenshots of our bank. So I have everything crossed off that's like personal information, but this is just proof that that was a lie, an absolute lie. I said, how much money is in the bank? And here's a screenshot that says, hi, Rebecca, like, etc., etc., showing how much money we had in the bank, because I was not able to get into it. I was never able to see how much went in there, how much I got paid, unless I looked on my AdSense, which is part of YouTube, and that's how you get paid. I was never able to see any of that. And we had our own separate debit cards that were in the joint account together. Any money that Beck received would go into the same spot that my money went to, because again, it was joint. I didn't have private anything. This is probably the one of the biggest lies, has left my jaw on the floor. Here we have it, where I say how much money is in the bank. Here it says, hi, Rebecca, because this is their account, literally their account right here, which we shared, but I could not get into it. So I have so many screenshots of Beck sending me screenshots of the bank because I couldn't see it.
I think the big issue that a lot of people probably find to be really unbelievable is that they had a shared bank account that was originally in Beck's name, mind you, but they had a shared bank account, and apparently Amberlynn, who at the time was probably making $10,000 to $20,000 a month, wasn't able to access the account. And her proof for this is that she had screenshots of text messages she sent to Beck where she asked Beck to tell her how much money was in the account. Which is also very silly because, like, you can see how much you get paid on YouTube. Like, she was specifically, I guess, asking after a paycheck went through to ask how much she got paid on YouTube. And like, looking at the screenshot, something just like doesn't really fully add up to me. Like, I'm not even necessarily saying that the screenshot is fake or that like she didn't at some point ask Beck for how much she got paid or something like that. It just feels like to me that there's more context missing from this. Like, there's some other reason that Amberlynn was asking for it or needed that info. Or perhaps like this was a screenshot from the very beginning of them having a shared bank account and like Amberlynn hadn't quite gotten everything set up on her end and so just needed that information from Beck. Because it is really truly hard for me to believe that Amberlynn Reed wouldn't have some kind of access to being able to look at that stuff. We know how controlling Amberlynn has been about so many other things in relationships. I mean, like, the first example that comes to mind is having the little like location tracker thing on for Erica, right? Like, Amberlynn has admitted to doing like so many things like that to be controlling of partners, to know what's going on with partners, has asked to look at their phones and stuff. And so you're telling me that Amberlynn Reed has no problem with not being able to access a bank account where she's depositing $10,000 to $20,000 a month? I'm just not buying it. There's more to the story there. There's something else there that explains it, and this just feels like it's not the full story. And as some people in the chat at the time were pointing out, and I 100% agree with, was that even if it was a joint bank account, it doesn't mean that Amberlynn allowed Beck to spend the money, or that anything that Beck has said about Amberlynn's manipulative nature when it comes to finances isn't true. Like, just having a shared bank account doesn't mean that Amberlynn didn't guilt Beck out of like trying to find a new job or out of trying to save some money or like questioning where the change went when she would give them cash and didn't get it all back. So if this joint bank account situation is supposed to be proof, there are other ways that you can manipulate your partner out of using that money. One of the ways that Amberlynn thought would show proof that there was no financial abuse was by talking about how she bought Beck a car.
I literally bought them a car. Like, I bought them a car.
And my immediate reaction was, well, Diva, of course you bought them a car. Of course you did. You needed a reliable car that was going to be able to drive you around to do all the things that you wanted to do. Like, she did mention that Beck had a car before they got together, and Beck was like, well, I just think we need something better, more reliable. And like, yeah, of course you're going to want the nicest thing that's going to help you achieve what you want to do, Amberlynn. Like, of course you're going to help Beck with that. And I don't think that's a bad thing for you to do. Like, I think that that's like a thing you do in relationships. But I don't think you get to absolve yourself from some of the allegations that Beck has made when it comes to money simply because you purchased a car for them to use, especially when it was something that ultimately benefited you. And another thing about the money stuff is that Amberlynn literally went on like a half a minute long monologue about how she buys people's love.
I'm that type of person where you guys have even seen it. You guys have seen it. You guys have called me out on my shit. I buy love. And I have gotten so much better with that, especially because like the last like 6 years of my life, 7 years of my life, 8 years actually, what am I saying? Like the last like 8 years of my life, like I have bought people with money. I have bought love. I have bought friendships. I have bought laughter. I have bought time with people because of money. And that's how it's always been. I have never been a greedy person when it comes to money. It's almost like I got a kick out of giving people money and like going on shopping sprees and like doing all these sorts of things. So it's like, what? I don't know. Speechless.
And I'm like, if you can sit here with your whole chest and say, yeah, I have bought people in my life, I've bought their love, and I love to like get things for people to have them love me, but you can't then make the leap of like, wow, I use money to manipulate people. Like, the only difference here is that you are using, well, honestly, I don't know that there's much difference. Like, you're willing to acknowledge that you use your money to buy gifts and things for people to get their admiration, to get their love, to get their affection, which is seemingly not that far away from, well, I also hold this money over Beck's head and don't allow them to do what they want with it, don't allow them to get a job, don't allow them to save their own money. It just doesn't make any sense. And when it comes to thinking about, you know, the money that was owed to Beck, when it comes to thinking about what was owed to Beck in terms of like participating in those live streams and things like that, Amberlynn claimed that they continued sharing that bank account for months afterwards. And the only reason it came to an end was because Feline told Amberlynn that it was kind of silly for Amberlynn to still be financing Beck's life. And that also doesn't make any damn sense to me. Like, I don't, why would one do that? I mean, I know Amberlynn doesn't always come across as the brightest person, but like, that doesn't sound like something somebody would do after a breakup that was seemingly not great, you know? Like, it just doesn't, I don't understand it. I want to try to understand it, but I don't understand it. You know, it just, it doesn't make sense to me. And it's weird because some folks are like, well, how did you break up that money then? Like, what did Beck get from that? And Amberlynn doesn't really answer it and just skirts around the issue. And it's also weird to me that Amberlynn said that she was going to keep the bank account. And that's just kind of weird because she was saying that the account was originally Beck and she put all of the onus on Beck to figure out how to get a new account and split up everything. So I just really truly don't understand that either. And I think it also acknowledges that at some point Amberlynn did get access to the account, because if you're sitting over here with no access to this account that has all of your money and you're trying to tell Beck to get off of it so you can keep using it. Well, how are you gonna keep using it if you don't have any access to it? So I really, truly, when you think about, you know, her coming on here and taking accountability for stuff, I think anything related to the finances of that relationship and the ways that Amberlynn used money to manipulate Beck, I don't think Amberlynn took any accountability for that. And even on the things that Amberlynn did take accountability for, most of it was followed up with, but Beck did this. But what you need to know is that Beck was a liar. Blah, 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 blah. Always followed up with something about what Beck did wrong. There was almost nothing that Amberlynn provided without an anecdote about Beck to follow. Outside of the accountability portions of this live stream, there were occasionally some other things that came up. Like, for instance, out of nowhere, Amberlynn talked about some of the unrealistic expectations that people have for her and went on a couple minute long monologue about me.
Zachary Michael for an instance. Like, I have been more free from watching reaction channels. Like, Jordy is like never on my list to watch. Like, what I'm trying to say is the only reaction channel that I watch that I don't like I like Elizabeth, so that doesn't count. Yo Mama, I like him, so that doesn't count. So those two do not count. Those, I will always watch them. But when it comes to like Jordy and like all of them, their little cluster of people, Zachary Michael is the only one that I sometimes watch still. And it's hard because it's like, even he has this unrealistic view of how I should be as a person, as a girlfriend, as a daughter, as a YouTuber. No matter what I'm showing in my videos, it's never good enough for him. And this is his job. So it's like, if your job is like to react to someone that's actually interesting to you, because obviously I'm not it. I'm not up to your standards of anything. Like, nothing is ever good enough. Like, I talk about my BPD because I want to hold myself accountable and I want to grow and learn and share and heal. Not good enough. I show my passions like Lego, this and that. Not good enough. Like, no matter what I do, no matter what I show, like, I'm never giving up this whole weight loss thing. But like, I watched Zachary's video from today and I'm talking about Weight Watchers and he's just rolling his eyes the whole time. And it's just like, I'm never going to be like this perfect person. Like, I'm looked at like I'm supposed to be perfect and I'm not going to be. I'm genuinely not. Like, yeah. Do you feel like people are holding you to an unrealistic standard? Yes. Forever, yes. Like, what do you want me to do? I am 500 pounds, Zach. What do you want me to do in a YouTube video? Like, I don't get it. Like, I know this was probably a question referring to like Beck. I get that. I mean, that's like a whole other topic within itself. Like,
and I quite honestly, truly can't believe we've circled back to this argument of like, well, if Zach doesn't like my content, like, why does he watch? Blah, 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 blah. Like, if Zach doesn't think that there's any hope for me, or if Zach is setting all these expectations and I can't meet them, then why does Zach care? Blah, 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 blah. And it's always so frustrating when we get back to this circle of how she feels about me, like this part of the loop of how she feels about me, because it's just like, I have actually talked about things that Amberlynn has done well. I've talked about the things that I enjoy about her channel throughout the history of me covering Amberlynn on the internet. And I've done it so much to the point that like people are claiming that like I'm an Amberlynn Reid apologist. People think that I'm on some kind of payroll with her, that we're in like cahoots to work together. We're not any of those things. So it's just like, I don't understand how we can get there. I want to tell you all that I just come on here and I say whatever I think and feel about the situation. And while I certainly care about what my audience thinks, like, I'm not ever gonna say something just to please my audience, and I think I've demonstrated that at this point many times. There's been many times that people have been upset with my opinion or take on things. And I'm also not coming on here to say shit to impress Amberlynn Reid or like to please Amberlynn Reid. And to be honest, she's now at this point said that I was abusive 2 different times, okay? Use the word abusive to describe me. And what doesn't make sense to me is that you would spend an entire video sitting there and talking about how abusive you felt like I was towards you, and then take a moment of another live stream of yours to talk about how I was abusive towards Beck. And yet you still want to sit here and admit that you watch me? You watch me and you think I'm abusive. Like, that is manipulation at its finest. finest, bestie. It is manipulative for you to turn this into, why do you still watch me if you don't enjoy my content? Girl, why do you still watch me if you think I'm abusive? She even brought up my little, like, reaction to her on Weight Watchers, and if you haven't seen that video, I did not have hope for her. I still don't have hope for her in Weight Watchers. And, like, yeah, I'm sorry, but you're correct. I don't think Weight Watchers is enough for you. I don't think that it's good enough, diva. It's not gonna do the job. It hasn't been doing the job. It hasn't done the job the past 1,200 times you've done it. You failed at Weight Watchers more times than I have fingers to count. More times than I probably have fingers and toes to count. And also in general, I don't know why you even brought this up, because like the original question she answered, I'm pretty sure was in response to Beck. Like it was a question about Beck, and Amberlynn decided to make this about me. So I don't know what this has to do with you taking accountability for the shit you did to Beck, but it doesn't make sense. And while we're talking about that, randomly also in response to a super chat she got, she decides to throw up how Snowflake allegedly cheats on his wife. And this isn't the first time she's done it, and I don't know anything about what those allegations are. I don't keep up with all that like that. All I want to say is, even if it was true, which hard to say for me, I'm gonna guess it's probably not, but I really don't know. But even if it was true, Amberlynn's ass has no business being on the internet talking about anybody else cheating when she like knowingly participated in an affair with a married woman. And the last bit of other information not related to her taking accountability is about Libby. And to be honest, I don't know a lot about the like things that people are saying related to her and Libby. But you may recall that in a members only live stream recently, she talked about having a lawyer. And in this live stream, she brings up the lawyer and says that it's in regards to Libby and the videos about Libby disappearing on her channel.
Why did some old videos disappear of Libra? Oh my God, I haven't said that in so long. Of Libby, because the craziest rumors have, see, I'm not really supposed to actually speak about this because I do have a lawyer for the situation. But I'm able to share this on my time. The craziest rumors are happening about someone who was literally genuinely like a little sister / friend to me. And I can't imagine being Libby and having people think that they were abused when they weren't. Like, so I was trying to just delete the videos with Libby because I was like, this is fucking weird. Like, genuinely the weirdest thing ever. So, yeah.
I know that was a lot to cover. It took me a lot to get through it. I was very busy on Friday, so I didn't have the time in my schedule to spend that much time looking at her live stream. She did post a new vlog today, so I'll either recap it in a future reaction or I will react to it as well. I don't know. We'll just see what kind of time I have maybe this weekend and or on Monday. But anyways, thanks so much for being so patient with me and getting my thoughts and feelings up about this live stream. I appreciate y'all waiting to hear my take and my thoughts on everything. And if you're brand new to my channel, consider subscribing down below. Hit the bell button so you get a notification every single time I post a new video. Make sure to leave me a comment, hit like, click share, and follow me on all my social media. I love you all so much, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!